Xin chào quý vị và khán thính giả chương trình Gali Today. Chúng tôi là Andrew. Hôm nay Anne có cơ hội gặp gỡ và bàn luận cùng với dân biểu liên bang Ro Khanna với Ủy viên giáo dục Eastside Union High School District Brian Doe về những vấn đề quan tâm của cộng đồng Việt Nam và việc làm của dân biểu liên bang Ro Khanna. So I would like to introduce myself. I'm Anh Tran. It is my pleasure and honor to discuss issues of importance to the Vietnamese American communities and the works that the Congressman has been doing since being elected in 2016. And Congressman Ro Khanna represents District 17, which encompasses North San Jose, Milpitas, part of Santa Clara, Fremont, Cupertino, and Sunnyvale. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Congressman Khanna and Trustee Doe to our show. And we're going to start with the very first question, which are, what issues are of significance to the residents of District 17 and to the Vietnamese American community specifically?
Kính chào quý vị, I'm Ro Khanna. Thank you for having me. Thank you, and really an honor to be back on Kelly today. We are focused, first of all, on human rights. Vice President Harris is going to Vietnam. I wrote a letter to the Vice President, led a letter from the Congress, saying that we have to call for the release of the political prisoners. There's an increase there of political prisoners. We have to call for the end to communism. We have to call for the prioritization of human rights, particularly with the journalists that are being detained. The situation is very tough there, and we have to take a tough line, not just prioritize the economic relationship, but really first stand up for human rights and the release of political prisoners. That is something that so many of my constituents have spoken to me about. That's why I joined the Vietnamese American Caucus. That's why I've written at least 15 letters to the Secretary of State in my 5 years there to free different political prisoners, and when I spoke on the House floor about human rights. Then we have issues of small businesses. A lot of small businesses are hurting. They aren't getting the PPP loans. They aren't being able to find workers right now. It's hard for them to find workers. They aren't being able to have the same consumers because they were shut down. So our office is working to make sure that they get help from Small Business Association, from PPP, make sure they get resources, and that we aren't just giving the resources to the big businesses. The third issue is immigration. A lot of immigration issues come to our office, and in our office we've had an outreach, Hipman who does our outreach, and he's been very, very good at getting outreach to the Vietnamese American community, and we've had quite a lot of immigration. And then the final issue is the issue of the this community center, and I'm very excited that Vietnamese American community is finally going to get a community center in San Jose, and we're going to try to get some funding, federal funding, once it's set up in the community projects in our requests.
Thank you so much for sharing, Congressman. So I know you mentioned about the human rights issue. So let's start with that particular issue, if you don't mind. Can you discuss the work your office has been doing to advance the cause of human rights in Vietnam?
Sure. We have written a letter to the Vice President, as I mentioned. We are advocating for so many political prisoners. There are about 15 political prisoners, different people. We get their entire case. We write to the Vietnamese government. I advocate with the Secretary of State, with our government, to put pressure for the release of those prisoners. I work with the entire Vietnamese American Caucus. I'm a part of the Vietnamese American Caucus. And we always speak out very, very strongly on this issue. With Zoe Lofgren, both of us really believe strongly in Vietnamese American human rights.
And what impact are you hoping to accomplish through all this particular work that you've been doing?
To put pressure on the Vietnamese government to stop the human rights abuses, stop the jailing of journalists, ultimately to democratize, ultimately to see the end of communism there. But we have to continue to be strong in speaking out for human rights.
Thank you, Congressman. And in what way should the Vietnamese American community partner toward the work you and your office are doing to advance the cause of human rights in Vietnam?
Well, they should work with me directly. They can work with Hip Nguyen in my office. They should raise to us, if they know of cases of journalists who've been in prison, political prisoners who've been in prison, reach out to us so that we can write to them. Sometimes we've written directly to the political prisoner in Vietnam and we're going to continue to do that.
I understand you also wrote a letter directly to the government of Vietnam in response to some of their work. Can you elaborate on that and how does that work?
Well, we've said clearly to the Vietnamese government, if they want to have an economic relationship with the United States, if they want access to our markets, if they want access to the United States, they need to uphold human rights. And we have called for the release of political prisoners, said that they need to stop the jailing of journalists, stop censoring speech. Now, sometimes it doesn't work, but sometimes it works. Sometimes they actually release the prisoners. Sometimes they at least hesitate before taking a new prisoner.
Do you want the government of Vietnam is currently asking for vaccine from the United States? Would you consider tying the donations of vaccines or the transferring of vaccine with human rights issues in Vietnam?
Well, the vaccines itself are a human rights issue, so I'm not sure I would link vaccines. I would, to save lives, I think we should be just getting vaccines to the people who need them. But I would link almost anything else. I'd link economic assistance of any kind of trade, which they want, access to our markets. I would link those economic issues to human rights.
There have been accusations that the vaccines from the United States go to the government officials and those who are connected to the government rather than to the average citizens or even to Vietnamese Americans who are in Vietnam at the moment. How would you prioritize that conversations?
Well, I think that they need to have international monitors, either the UN or the Red Cross or some international body to ensure that it's actually getting to the citizens, and maybe we have to be involved. But if that's the case, I think we have to make sure if they're using American vaccines that it's distributed correctly.
Thank you, Congressman. So we're going to move on to the next topic, which you have also discussed in your initial answer. Is we mentioned a little bit about small businesses and the impact of small businesses due to this pandemic. So in what specific way have your office enacted positive changes to help small businesses to mitigate the impact of the pandemic?
Well, we have done a lot to help small businesses apply for PPP loans, apply for SBA loans, apply for economic aid. I mean, some of them had to be without customers for months. They struggled to stay open. And now that they're open, now we've got the Delta variant. So there's again this a challenge to our economy. And a lot of them can't find employees, the ones I talk to. So there's a shortage of employees. So we've been helping them get the economic aid so that they can survive. And I'm really proud of so many of them that have survived.
And I'm curious as well, because even though the resources are actually there, but not everyone can actually are able to access those resources. For instance, small businesses owner who may not, speak fluent English or know how to access all the paperwork. So I'm wondering, how do your office or even at the federal government, what are they doing to ensure that those small mom and pop stores, the one that don't speak English, are able to access some of these resources?
Well, we first of all we have a caseworker that helps them, and then they can help translate. They can help fill out the applications. They can help guide them in what they need to do, and that's why it's so important. If you're a small business owner and you feel like you qualify, or you may not know if you qualify, contact our office. That's what we're there for. We'll figure out if you qualify. We'll figure out where you have to apply. We'll tell you what you have to fill out. That's what the Congressman's office is there to help you navigate the federal government.
And I know that's, it seems like a simple answer that contact your office, but I think a lot of time, many of these people don't know what number, to contact or what email to contact or when to contact.
If they go on the internet and they look up Ro Khanna, the first thing that pops up is my office, and my email is on there, my phone, our office phone number is on there. There's a form they can fill out, and within 24 hours, someone will contact them. Hip and Win, they can ask for Hip and Win in my office. But all they have to do is go on the website, and all of the information is there.
And we'll put it on the website. I'll ask the publisher of Kelly today to put the website as part of this conversation so that they can look it up, make it easier for our audience.
That'll be tremendously helpful to some of our audience.
Great.
And the next question is we're talking about education. I know that you are a proponent of public education.
I'm a big proponent,
And that your mom is also a teacher and in the SPED department, from what I know. So education is a big platform, a key component in your platform when you run for office. So can you elaborate a little bit more about your vision of...
Before you answer, I just want to introduce, I should have probably introduced Dr. Ann Tran. Is recently got a PhD. She's recently been promoted at Eastside Union High School District. She's one of our rising stars at the district.
Yeah, we're very proud of her, of her career. She's a great educator. Well, I've pushed very hard for more funding with the CARES Act that brought $100 billion invested in our public schools for infrastructure, for remote learning during COVID, for improving the facilities, building new schools. I just saw in Santa Clara, they built this elementary school and middle school in Santa Clara School District to serve some of San Jose. A lot of large Vietnamese population is there too that's going to be served there. That's the kind of federal funding helps build those new schools. And then we need to get funding to help pay teachers more. We need to get funding to have smaller classroom sizes. We need to have funding for the young kids, for more preschool and childcare, because that's a big cost for working parents. So how do they have their kids, or 2 or 3 or 4?
No, those are absolutely very, very important. And through the American Rescue Act, there's a lot of money coming in to support education at this time as we're transitioning with COVID-19. But as we know, that is like a one-time deal. And so how do we make sure that these fundings are sustainable and that teachers and school are still continue to get the financial resources necessary after this particular funding is ending? Do you have any insight on how that might be achieved?
I think the funding, we need more in our reconciliation bill. So we got funding from the American Rescue Plan, almost $100 billion for teachers, for schools. But you're right, with the Delta variant, with things still not improving, we need more funding. We need more funding, and I'm going to be pushing for that funding from our government in this infrastructure reconciliation bill to bring back more money for the schools.
Thank you so much, Congressman. And in what specific way have your office enact positive changes in the area of education?
Well, we brought back a lot of money for these schools.
That's
we brought back money, and we brought back money for some of the programs. There's a digital literacy program in the San Jose Library that helps provide childcare for young kids, but also teaching them digital programs. And we brought money for that program. So we have really brought a tremendous millions of dollars through the American Rescue Plan, through the community projects that have been funded, through the infrastructure projects that we've gotten funded. And I look forward to continuing to work for the community. And next time, the Vietnamese Community Center wasn't there, so we couldn't submit it for a request. But next year, when it's up and running, I look forward to submitting it.
Thank
you so much, sir. And I know that we talk a lot about education and funding that. And where do you stand in terms of funding fully funded special education program here in the state?
Well, we need to do that. The IDEA Act. I mean. The federal government said we would pay 40% of special education. We're paying 15%. We have to pay the difference, otherwise the school districts are too burdened with it.
Yeah, and as a result of that, a lot of the program we couldn't do at school because we have to supplement the funding that the federal government or not put it in.
You're absolutely right.
It's an ongoing challenge because the school basically does not are required to perform all the services, but
don't have the money. The federal government gives the mandates, but not the money. Right. So we need to change that.
Right.
How do we change that? I'm curious.
Well, Jared Huffman has a bill, and I'm sponsoring the bill that would fully fund the IDEA Act, and we just need to convince now the president and others to get behind it.
Fantastic.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next question, if you don't mind. There's been rumor that you support defund police. Okay.
No, I don't.
Can you help clarify your position?
I support law enforcement. I support the police. I support that they need to be funded to keep us safe, to make sure that they're not burglaries, to make sure that they're not crimes. What I support is to have massive investment in their education so that they have racial sensitivity training, so that they have equity. But that means we have to invest in those kind of programs to make sure that we don't have the overreach and overuse of force, and that they are racially diverse. But absolutely, they have to be funded. It would be counterproductive not to be funding them. And the CARES Act actually brought back money to fund them. So my voting record is one of funding the police.
So the distinction is not that you're defunding police, but rather you fight for police reform,
Police reform.
public safety reform, and that's probably the most accurate way of describing your position.
Yes, diversify the police force. There should be more Vietnamese Americans, more Indian Americans on the police force. There should be cultural sensitivity and training. So you're meeting with community leaders. So you're realizing that not every situation should escalate to the use of force. But sometimes that means actually having more police, right? Because you may need 3 police officers so you don't escalate a situation. But what I'm not for is sort of cutting the police force at a time where already you have lag times in emergency response. Already a lot of burglaries, other things don't get investigated. Already the police are stretched thin. So in our area, that doesn't make any sense.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you.
So we discussed a little bit about raising the minimum wages.
Yes.
And are there unintended consequences that might impact small businesses
Yes.
if that happens?
Yeah,
And what would that be?
I mean, I am for a $15 minimum wage, but I understand that for small businesses, that can be a challenge. And that's why I've said for small businesses, they need to have a tax credit to compensate for the higher wage. So if you're a small business and you're paying $9 and we move it up to $15, the federal government should pay the difference so that your costs don't go up. And I think we need the higher wage because the Amazons and the Walmarts and the Targets, they can afford it. And so actually it would help small business because we would raise the wage and the big companies would have to pay it, but the small businesses would have a tax incentive and they would then be able to have a better competitive advantage.
How do you define a small business in terms of revenues or in terms of the employees? How would you define and target that?
I think we know it when we say, but probably about 25 to 50 employees and under 5 million of revenue, I think, or something around that. But most of the businesses in our community are small businesses. You know, they're a coffee shop, a food shop, a restaurant, a printing shop, a mechanic shop. These are all small businesses.
Oh, thank you, Congressman. And and I think I may echo some sentiment that the Asian American group, some may feel that we're highly underrepresented at the government level. I mean, at all level of the government. And I'm wondering, what are your thoughts in that, and what are some things we can do to get more, representation and have our voices be heard in government and our needs are addressed?
Well, it's a great question, and I think we need more people like you and Brian Dole, more leaders in the community, school boards and positions of education and our city commissions. We need more people running. I think it's a mistake right now that the Vietnamese community is totally unrepresented on the city council. We need a few Vietnamese Americans to win in city council. We need Vietnamese Americans running for a state assembly, state senate, Congress, and Asian Americans serving in the administration. And I think we're getting more diversity as the Asian American community, but we have a long way to go. And I'm part of KPAC, Congressional Asian American Caucus, where we get resumes and try to help people get jobs in public service. And I always look forward to hearing from young people who have an interest in that.
Thank you, Congressman. I'm curious to know, in your experience, what are some programs that are effective in building, leadership pipeline, especially in the Asian American communities?
I think working on campaigns is very effective. Interning in offices is very effective. We have a lot of internships. Any public officials very effective in internships. Doing speaking out in school board meetings and city council meetings, going and participating in that is a great experience. So those are some.
Yeah. As my personal experience, I have volunteered for many campaigns. I can tell you it's one of the best way to learn the nut and bolt of how government works. Because by volunteering, by connecting, you're connecting with the voters, you connect with your community, and you also connect with the elected.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, are there anything else you would like to address the Vietnamese American audiences?
I'm so honored to have the support of the Vietnamese American community. You believed in me 5 years ago when I won. Many of you took a chance. And I hope I have lived up to your expectations of first and foremost standing up for human rights. I've always promised that, and I believe been one of the strongest voices in the entire Congress on human rights. And I look forward to working more closely with the community on now the community center, on small business and supporting small business, on issues, cases, so make sure they know they can come to our office. And on making sure we have more Vietnamese Americans represented in public service. It's a vibrant community, a great community, and I'm just honored to be a representative of a district that has such a large Vietnamese American population.
And School Board Member Brian Doe, anything else you would like to add to that?
It's an absolute honor to sit with Congressman Ro Khanna and, of course, with our newly promoted Dean of Student Services at Eastside Union School District.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations, and I'm looking forward to continuing working with both of you to the betterment of our students and also our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So I would like to thank Congressman Ro Khanna and School Board Member Brian Doe for being here today. I look forward to hearing more of the progress of your work and to advance the district and the community. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.